Did you ever get your saw stuck when you're cutting into the wood like this one over here? This is due to tension and compression in the wood. And this is what we're gonna talk about today. This is Chainsaw Safety with Clemson University. And I am your training instructor, Patrick Giesel. And today we are going to learn about stresses in trees and logs. All right, we're out here in the woods, and before you start cutting any kind of trees that are on the ground, you need to think about compression and tension in a log or in a limb that you're about to limb. Compression is basically when the wood fibers want to squeeze together because of the way that a log is sitting on the ground and it wants to move. Tension is where the wood fibers want to pull apart. If you think about compression, tension, and you start cutting into the compression side, what will happen, because the fibers want to squeeze together and they really want to compress onto each other, if you start cutting deep enough into the wood, you will pinch your saw. On the other hand, if you're cutting into the tension side, what will happen as you start cutting deeper and deeper into the wood, the fibers will start to pull apart and your saw curve will slowly start to widen and to open up, and you will be able to make a nice and clean cut into the log or into the branch. Now, how do you assess tension and compression in a log or a tree that's sitting on the ground? The example that I have here is a tree that we recently felled. One end of the tree is suspended and still attached to the stump that we cut. The other end of the log, so the top part of the tree, is actually laying on the ground. So what we have here is basically now 2 points of contact with the ground, and if I were to start cutting this log or this tree here in front of me, right here in the middle, naturally those 2 pieces that I'm cutting apart would want to fold down onto the ground, which means in this case I would have compression on the top where the fibers want to squeeze together, and I have tension on the bottom where the fibers want to pull apart as I'm cutting. Now, compression and tension will change throughout the log depending on where you're going to cut it. It really depends on where and at how many points a log or a piece of wood is supported on the ground. So if I'm cutting here, I have compression on the top and tension on the bottom. If I go further down the log, maybe what happens is that I have compression happening on the bottom and tension happening on the top. It depends on how, again, the log is supported. Tension and compression is not unique to logs that are on the ground, but it also appears in branches that you have hanging and still attached to a tree that may have fallen down by storm throw or that you felled. So with branches, oftentimes you only have one point of support, and that is where the branch is still attached to the tree, which means for the most part you will have compression on the underside, on the side that is closer to the ground, and you have tension happening on the top side of the branch, the area that is farthest away from the ground. This is something that takes experience. You have to think about it as you start cutting, and if you feel that your saw is starting to pinch as you're cutting into the wood, you're probably cutting on the compression side. If you see that your saw curve is starting to widen and to open up as you're making a cut, you know that you're cutting into the tension side.